Hello, Moonkamuk here with an explanation video while showing a new redstone design that brings us into a new era of item sorting. Now, starting from scratch, this might sound obvious to the technical players. Trust me, I know they know stuff based on my CUD video, but understanding the basics greatly aids in designing new item filters, plus it helps new players understand these concepts. Now, what is item sorting? Item sorting is being able to separate any item from all the other items that are in the game of Minecraft. Now, really, there's only 3 requirements for an item to be sortable. A, it has to have a unique property that it alone has, or other items can have it, but you need to make sure they're filtered out first. B, that property is detectable with redstone, so you can actually do something with it. And C, it has to be repeatable, so it doesn't break after the first time you use it. Now, an easy example that meets these 3 requirements is any stackable item, because each stackable item has its own unique property, which is simply that it can stack with itself, while other items can't stack with it. And so that passes A. And then for B, it can be detected with redstone by essentially using a comparator from a hopper, so then whenever there is an item that stacks, the comparator can detect it. And then C, it's repeatable because it continues to work and the filter doesn't break itself. Now, an example of an item that is almost filterable but doesn't meet all 3 requirements is iron armor. So iron armor, first you can sort it from other items by using an armor stand to dispense it on. And then, so that separates it from most items, but then you have other armors. But with iron armor, you can smelt them, which is a unique property, no gold armor for this example, and as you can see, it is also detectable by detecting if fuel is used. However, as you can see, it turned into iron nugget, so that means we have to take it out, and this is where it fails because it's not repeatable, because the only way to take an item out of a furnace before it is melted is essentially this method here, which, as you can see, is ultimately a one-time use. So therefore, with this setup, iron armor specifically is not sortable. Out of the sorter designs I've seen online, I can group them into 4 main types of sorters. First, we have the single item stackable sorter, which is essentially the one that I just explained earlier, and essentially this one here has a great range of diversity, because this one design here, you can essentially copy it and just swap out the item for what you want to sort just by simply changing the item out. So that's essentially the first one. And then the next one here is essentially a mass item type of sorting, which is kind of upgrade of that, where instead of this here is just limited to 1 item per the design until you multiply it, while more advanced ones is able to sort in many different items only using 1 build of the design. As you can see, the logs go in. Ignore that. But as you can see, the books get separated out. So those are kind of the main 2 for stackables. That is a large majority of the game. However, these don't work with unstackable items, where the next group here is comes in. This is essentially a single item type. So not item, but item type sorters. So for example, using a jukebox to essentially sort out all the different music discs based on their single strength that they output, or using a chisel bookshelf to essentially sort out book types from other items where they go in there. Essentially, it sorts out a single family of items. And then the more advanced ones is essentially a fully custom design that is specifically built and designed to sort out 1 specific item. Most of the time, this is a non-stackable item. And with these, the design itself is most limited. However, with 1.20.1, a new category was created that I haven't seen covered really anywhere in detail except for 1 minor use case, which is essentially in between these 2 categories of the mass and a family type sorter, which is essentially a multi-category sorter. And the trick behind that, the new feature that was added, was just simply the crafter. The crafter block itself allows for a new category sorting, which is essentially sorting by crafting recipe, of which there is a lot in the game, which opens up a huge area for new designs. how the crafter meets the free requirements to sort out an item. It's quite simple. Let me just go over here. So the first one is it has to have a unique property to distinguish it out from other items, which is in this case simply just a valid crafting recipe. And can it be detected by redstone, which is B, which it can, because whenever you get an output, it's a valid output, it spits it out. And as you can see, you can easily take redstone from that, or you can take redstone from the thing directly. And then it also meets C, because in this case, for example, if you had an invalid one, that is essentially invalid, doesn't spit it out, but just stays in. But it is repeatable, because if it's an invalid one, you can simply just pull the item out of the crafter, unlike the furnace, to sort out the iron armor. Now there's one downside with this. As you can see with this one here, it essentially sacrifices the honeycomb in order to sort out, in this case, any copper block. So first you have to sacrifice an item, and then you also kind of get a slight variance of the item you're filtering out. So quite often then you have to use a post-treatment process to essentially turn it back into the original form. Now with that being said, let's go over to the design I have built. That specifically is designed to be configurable to any 2-item shapeless crafting recipes. So for the first one here, I have it set to sort out any dyeable items. So if you were to first filter out the stackable items, this configuration here can specifically filter out leather armor, which wasn't possible to sort at all. Same goes with bed. If you use the armor stand to separate the armor from the bed. So just to show how it works here, let me just grab some leather armor, some other armor, let's grab some beds for example, and let me just put them in. And let's just grab, I don't know, some wool as well to show that. And as you can see, all the dyeable stuff comes out on this end here. Now the post-treatment process on this one is simply just to wash it out in a cauldron to return it back to its original condition. And then a non-items here essentially just gets pulled out. Now how this design here specifically works, once one item is in, it locks it from any more coming in, and then additionally right afterwards it puts in a dye. You can use any dye in this case, and then as soon as that is injected, it essentially the same repeater makes it craft. So if it is about crafting recipe, then it shoots it out directly into the barrel, into the output. But if it's an invalid one, the items just stay in the crafting recipe, which then after a short delay, it unlocks the bomb hopper, allowing the 2 items to drain back out, with the first item going out in this barrel and the dye going through a regular stackable item filter, which I have here at the bottom, which essentially gets recycled back up to the top to be reused. And then this here is just to fill in extra, so whenever this supply gets low, this refills it. And then this here is also a safety mechanism to essentially lock down the system if your backup supply runs out. Now one particular thing here is if you insert essentially the sacrificial item into the crafter, essentially what it does is it just goes into the filter and kind of just goes into the supply. So that's the first case. So there's 2 new items that can be sorted out that wasn't possible, so the leather armor and the bed. So another one example here, this one could be done before, but if you, let's say you want to sort out stone types using vine as a sacrificial item, we can essentially sort out cobblestone and stone bricks in this case. So those items come out here while the blocks goes there. You could use moss, but then if you get another moss in there, you can get a moss carpet. So that's another use case for it. Another one is a shield sorter, which was another item that was previously impossible to sort out. So the sacrificial item here is the banner. So if I put in shields and I just put in other items, the shields come out here, and then any other items come out at the bottom here. Another use case is a map sorter, specifically one that is already used. So if I just grab an empty map and use this, because right now the map data here, it's only items of the exact same ID that can be put through a regular item sorter. But let's say you just want to sort out all open maps, this here allows you to do that. So I'll just put this in here, put in some empty maps for example, some of this, some that. And then, as you can see, the two maps here essentially got copied and put into here, but they're all here, while the other items got out here. So that's a use case for that previously wasn't possible. And one that I showed in the example there is essentially a copper thing. So any item that is not wax, which is a fair amount, you can put any of these in here. So then the actual size here is essentially a 6 by 3 by 7. And essentially now onto a build tutorial. So what I'm going to do is essentially start from the crafter. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this here is for a 2-item shapeless crafting recipe, but much smarter people who has more time compared to me, they can probably design a lot more sorters for items that weren't previously possible by configuring the the crafter to fit custom shapes. Like, for example, you could probably filter out sherds based on the pot recipe and that kind of stuff. So anyways, continuing on. So essentially what I want to do is place a crafter in the middle block here. That's essentially 3 down from the top. So I'm going to essentially do everything based off of that. Oh, that's why that one wasn't working, because this one here was missing a target block. Okay, anyways, continuing on. So what you want to do is essentially place a target block underneath into a comparator with a target block on top, and then into a solid block right behind it, and then this here goes into a redstone dust, and then from here you can place a hopper on top of the crafter, because essentially that locks the input for multiple items going in. You can put your input chest there, and then from here what you want to do is essentially go on the back side here and place 2 solid blocks there with redstone dust and a repeater going into a solid into the dropper. In this case, the dropper, you can place 3 vertical ones. I already placed one already, so I'll just break that bottom one there. So there is that. And then what you want to do is at the back you want to add 3 more with redstone dust on either side there, with a repeater on one from max, which then goes into a redstone torch, which then goes down a block of redstone dust into that target block, and then from there you can have your hopper. Well, first of all, you can have your outputs for ones that are successfully crafted there, and then the ones that failed to craft, you can pull them out here, and I have it just go into one, yep, and have your essentially your reject barrel there. And then from there what you want to do is essentially build your standard stackable item sorter. So I kind of just reconfigured it to essentially be more compact in this particular build. So I want to grab a redstone repeater and pull it out of the hopper that's just facing into the air, and then from here what you want to do is just run it into a V shape with redstone dust on all sides, which then feeds into a target block, which then feeds into a torch. And then from here what you want to do is go to the other side here and essentially place a sticky piston facing up, and then 2 observers facing into each other. So in this case here, the bottom one would be facing that way. So essentially this here creates the observer clock to bring the filter item back up to the crafter. And then from that, oh yeah, we need to put in the safety system to essentially know when to shut off the design. So, well, first of all, we can place the 2 hoppers like that, and then your storage thing for your essentially your filter item. And then from here you want to take a output from the essentially the supply dropper, place a redstone comparator on that, another one facing into it, put this one on distract mode, and then place a hopper facing into it with a redstone dust on top. And then inside the item hopper, you essentially just want to place any stackable of 64 one item into there. And then from here what you want to do is place the redstone dust on top. This here essentially locks the backup supply from completely filling up and preventing the recycling from actually getting recycled. And after that, place a block, have that go into a torch, which then essentially goes into a block that also cuts off the input if the supply runs out. And then after that, it should work, and then you just have to determine what you want set to. So in this case, let's set to the die one to sort out beds or armor, leather armor specifically. So what you want to do is just grab the filter. Well, first we got to set the filter item down here. So what you want to do is just rename an item that shouldn't go into the system, and then fill out the last 4 slots. Put in your essentially your filter item and let it essentially drain up, which goes into here. You can place your spares or whatnot into here. And as you can see, when that's filtering, this piston gets pushed up, which powers the elevator. As you can see, that's there, and that should be all. And let's just double check it. So let's just grab some armor of various types and just put them through. And there we go, just like that, a working filter for new items that were previously unsortable. Have a good day.